You're still watching iBrand Daybreak. Well, let's talk money now. The practice of wealth management and estate planning has become very important for individuals desiring to put their assets, liabilities, and debt in order and create a working plan for its efficient management and eventual distribution during a lifetime and upon individual's death or incapacitation. And joining us right here in the studio is Charles Fakroha. He is a business analyst and stockbroker. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Oh, thank you, Samson.
A beautiful new week indeed.
Yes.
Now talk to us about estate management.
Estate
Planning. Estate
okay.
planning. Estate
No, of course,
management.
planning, that's the plan. Then the actual implementing will be the management of it. Yeah, so when we talk about estate planning, you know, most people think you need to have a lawyer. Yes, it's good for an estate attorney to talk to you, but we are saying you as an individual, you know, you don't need to be too sophisticated for you to understand what is estate planning. It just simply, you want to ensure that when the good Lord calls you, the way you want your assets to be distributed. So it is you still trying to achieve something after we have left this planet.
Okay.
That is just simply estate planning.
Okay. So that would include, you know, will, deed of gift, and the rest of them?
Of course, yes.
Okay. So let's break it down. Let's start with will, because that's also part of, you know, planning how to distribute assets and all. People just think, oh, maybe when I'm 50, 60, I can now begin to plan, you know, how my will will be and all of that. When is the ideal time for one to have a will and begin to plan for, you know,
Okay, very good. Before we answer that question, let's ask ourselves, what are the goals of estate planning?
Okay.
Yeah, first of all, you don't want issues to happen when you have gone. So, and you want to provide for your loved ones, your wife, your children. And at the same time, you want to ensure that what you have worked for goes to a particular charity that you are passionate about. Now, looking at will now, when is the best time to write a will? You know, in this climb, people believe that once you write a will, that's a passport to...
Death sentence?
It's a death sentence. But again, we are saying no. A will is a lifelong activity that you can keep changing as long as you are alive. Imagine if you start working, but I will advise the ideal time to have a will, a formal will, when you start working, when you are earning an income.
Okay.
Yes. That's
Even
the
if
ideal
it's
time.
in your 20s.
Yes, that's the ideal time. Now, as your circumstances improve, you acquire property, you acquire this, you acquire that, and maybe initially you were not married. And of course, some persons you put in the will, when you now get married, your circumstances change. Then, obviously, it is now your responsibility to begin to change some of those things. Don't believe that the very first day you write it down, you can't change it. You can continuously update and change the things in your will.
Okay.
Now, a will has to be valid. That's the most important thing. For you to have a valid will, some have said, well, it has to be statutory, that it has to be written. But we've seen some non-cooperative will where will can be done orally in the presence of honorable witnesses.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
So how would that hold water when it comes to backing it up or presenting it to the necessary?
Yes, that's why I say for where there are credible witnesses, yes, it can be oral. But we advise that you make your will to be written. Some people have a recorded version of what they have said, so that should be played after their death.
That makes sense. But when it's just verbal without any written, you know, stuff to back it up, how do you present that in a court of law?
In some cultures, that they said this man said, when I die, bury me in this place. He wouldn't have written that down. But because the people want to obey his last wishes, they will carry it out for him. And it's okay, that's my land in that back of that village close to the express. Please give it to this person. And if there were credible witnesses there, and they, of course, they want to.
So when you say credible witnesses, who are these people?
Maybe village elders.
Okay.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. It happens in maybe in traditional
Rural,
setting, rural area.
Okay.
But modern days, we advise that
it's written.
it should be a statutory will.
So you were going to tell us what constitutes estate planning.
Yes, estate planning is just one of your plan in terms of financial planning. And so for an estate plan, you need to have your will. You need to, first of all, what they call, you assemble your assets,
okay,
your liabilities, because even when you are dead, if you have left some liabilities, it's expected that you pay back. So it will be paid back from the assets of your estate.
okay.
Now, you will need to have, of course, there must be witness after you have written that your will. Two witnesses will sign.
Yes.
Then you will have appointed what we call an executor for a man, executrix for a woman. Now, you can have more than one executor. You can have two.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the role of the executor?
Exactly.
The executor's role is simply you have given them that authority as your personal representative to carry out what you have written in that your will.
Okay.
That is their role.
In other words, the lawyer of the deceased would then be the executor. It could be anyone.
The lawyer does not necessarily have to be the
okay.
executor, yes. But of course, his own is to ensure that that will is probated.
Okay.
Is probated. That is taking it to the high courts,
Okay.
keep registering it and keeping it there. And when finally the good Lord has called you, then of course he has to go through, use that's your will. You have to go through what we call probate.
Okay.
Probate is just simply giving legal backing to that your will. As simple as that.
Okay.
So what are the downsides when it comes to this estate planning?
Well, when you say downside, yes,
The loopholes, the bottlenecks, challenges.
everybody different. Everybody's different. Some persons might not want to go through probate. Yes, there are other estate planning tools that you can use.
Okay.
You can have a living trust.
Okay.
Yes. And some persons, looking at where they are coming from, there's a lot of expectations, and they don't want controversy, even when they have gone. So while they are alive, they can set up a trust, so that they don't own anything again.
What's a trust?
A trust is just simply, it just creates a vehicle. All your properties, you transfer it to that trust. You appoint a trustee
And they manage.
as the manager of that trust. While you're alive, you can name the beneficiaries. Yourself can be a beneficiary. So, but you fund the trust. So, any returns that come from that trust, they give it to you while you're still alive. Now, you have named beneficiaries in that trust. So, when you finally go, those beneficiaries will continue to get the benefits. So, you have not written a will. I have not done any legal document. But the trustee might not necessarily be an individual.
Okay.
It can be an investment banker. It can be a trust department of any investment banking firm. They will now handle that investment for you and ensure that those that have been mentioned in the beneficiaries in that trust are taken care of.
In other words, equity firms or asset management firms can handle that.
Yes, they can properly registered for that function.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Before she continues with that line of thought, I still want us to talk about that of the role of the executor.
Okay.
You said it's not necessarily the lawyer of the deceased now that has to carry out the function. The will. The executor, in trying to carry out the wishes of the deceased.
Yes.
How does he go about the role of executing that will? The reason I'm asking is lawyers will come, they read, and then they expect that the law firm goes about managing it. But for an executor that is not a lawyer, how can such an executor or executrix, as you said, go about executing it? Okay.
We're assuming that the person died testate.
Okay.
That is a valid will. There could be a situation where there is no will, but that does not mean your property has just gone like that. There is a process of doing that. Now, there is a valid will. The man is now late. They have mentioned executors in the will. The lawyer will come, read out the will, all the things there. Then the executors, their names will also be mentioned.
Okay.
Now, they are now the lawyers will only guide them. They are now the official persons to take that document to the court, of course, with the advice and guidance from the lawyer. Note, the lawyer has been paid his fees. Now, for these executors, they might decide not to collect any fees, depending on their relationship with the disease, while some are being paid. So it depends on the disease. Yeah, the arrangement. Now, their duty now is to go and apply for probate. Of course, like I said, advice from the lawyer. And when it gets to probate, probate is just simply giving legal backing to that will. And once that is done, of course, you pay certain taxes to government, certain fees. Now, the executors will now look at what is in the will and they begin to implement. If they have issues, of course, they will ask for assistance from the lawyer. Okay.
Just a quick one. So if the will states, for example, this house in the village, probably sell and share the funds equally to probably 3, members of the family and all. Yeah. The executors are the ones who will go about selling, the assets, then disburse the funds?
Of course. Okay. If physically they can't go, they can authorize any estate agent, sell. Of course, normally when you sell a property, agents will take their own commission and all that. But of course, the proceeds, of course, after paying other expenses from the estate, of course, will now be distributed equally. Okay. That's according to the wishes of the disease.
Okay. So what's the role of an administrator in all of this?
Good. Now, for an administrator, it's the same thing as an executor. But for administrator, there was no will.
How do you know?
There was no will. The disease died without a valid will. There was no will.
Okay.
So, and at that instance becomes difficult because people will not know the wishes of the disease. Now, the next of kin or people close, relations of that disease, can now approach the courts to get what they call a letter of administration.
Okay.
Now, once that is gotten from the courts, then the courts as now or is giving the administrators, they might be one, they might be, but most of this time now, people prefer 2. They don't have that legal authority to begin to administer and manage the estate of that disease.
Okay.
But you can see now, it's not been appointed by the disease himself because he is gone.
Yes.
The courts has given them
the go ahead.
The go ahead because they've applied, paid all necessary fees, and they can now decide.
So you make all of this sound so simple, but why is it still not really acceptable? When it comes to writing a will, a lot of people see it as a death sentence, as you said earlier. Is it that the level of sensitization is still poor? People are not aware. What are the issues?
Well, let's look at it. Some might say it's a cultural issue.
Yes, a cultural
balance. You know, by the time you start talking to your wife or your husband, I want to write my will, they will think that your death is close. But one thing we want to say here is every man has an appointment with death. And we don't know when it's going to come. So we just need to prepare and plan so that at the end of the day, our loved ones will not suffer.
All right.
And that's one of your main goal of any estate planning, to ensure that your spouse, your children are taken care of even when the good Lord has called you. We want a situation where you didn't write a will, there are confusion here and there. Even your body will not, because you need peace. You need to have peace wherever you are.
All right. Thank you so much, Alpha Koha, financial expert and business analyst.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the show. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll delve into the world of sports. Don't go anywhere.